Hi, we are the Powers of Love, and I'm Jason Michael.
And I'm Heather Powers.
And we are so excited to give you this love offering from our heart to yours. We call this the balance of powers, the 3 keys to unlocking true love.
Everything that we're about to share with you comes directly from our own relationship experience. Not only the relationship with each other, but most importantly, the relationship with ourselves.
And so this is a transformative half an hour that you're going to take with us. As Heather said, this is from the cauldron of our own heart, our own life, from failed marriages, failed relationships, to truly living a life of dharma, of passion, and purpose. And so we invite you to take this journey with us. Thank you for being with us now.
Enjoy.
All right, here we go. The first secret, the first block to true love that we've come to understand is what the Course in Miracles, one of my favorite books, it talks about there's really only one problem here on this planet Earth, in this Earth school, to all our problems, and that is separation. That we truly believe, it's some core belief, that we are separate from love itself. You can call it God, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, intelligence, universal source, but it's love. It's nothing but love. And when we believe we're separate from that, then it affects, we have a separation belief.
Mm-hmm. We're constantly in this realm looking for the outside to give us what we're feeling in lack of on the inside. And so what we want to do is we want to just look at what things are keeping you from having that time each day to really connect with yourself.
And so a daily spiritual practice, ask yourself, where are you at in your daily spiritual practice? I know in my own journey, I can be haphazard. And when I find myself haphazard, I have a haphazard life. Mm-hmm. I might feel a little disconnected from the source of love, so maybe I'm accessing more fear because of what I'm seeing in the world. So a daily spiritual practice, where are you at with that?
The next point is fear of intimacy. And the only reason that we're ever fearful to be intimate with someone else is because we haven't connected to ourselves. And part of this journey of really getting to know who we are on the inside can be intimidating at times because we have shadows that haven't been brought up to the surface and loved back to wholeness yet. And so this fear can keep us disconnected from other people, which makes us feel alone and vulnerable and just we project fears upon each other.
Mm-hmm. And the third step is a belief that you are less than worthy of love. And this is a plague that plagues all of us. We have this common dis-ease, right? Disease, dis-ease. Maybe that's the first time you're seeing it that way or hearing it that way. But there's not a sense of deep love of self. And I love what Whitney Houston said. The greatest love of all is happening to me. And what is happening is when we access love, we find it. But this, can you look at yourself in the mirror and go, I am worthy of love? I joke with, I got Saturday Night Live in my head right now, the pat or whatever it is. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Love it. Atonement. At-one-ment, actually. I love looking at it this way because really coming back into a relationship with yourself is the most fundamental secret that any of us have to have other relationships. And so Jason and I both make it our intention every day to have a sacred time by ourselves and with each other as a couple, which is really, really important. But it's not to eclipse that time where you come into that quiet silence inside of yourself.
So it's just to stress that daily spiritual practice, whatever that is for you, that moment where you can come back to at-one-ment with the source of love itself is the most crucial. It's it. You do that, and the rest is whatever. You'll learn how to access it. I know that's how I found Heather, was because I went within, and I found her within. She lives within my heart, and she manifested in the outer realms because of a daily commitment to the source of love itself.
Mm-hmm. Forgiving yourself and others. This is a tough journey for all of us because, it goes back to those places, the shadow places in our own being where sometimes we're so afraid to really uncover or shine light upon because we have this fear that who we are underneath is too dark, or there are things in our past that we don't want to deal with or share. And so forgiving ourselves, bringing forth the essence of forgiveness, really unlocks us to access deeper levels of who we truly are.
Imagine your heart like a chalice. And if you see in your heart, there's debris, there's rocks and stones, and each of those stones and debris are resentments and just grudges and people who've wronged you, who's wronged you, who have you wronged, whatever. Those are sitting in your heart chalice. And to have more love, pure love, light stream pour into this chalice, you have to empty your cup. And that is through forgiveness. There are many tools and practices on how to forgive, but until you truly forgive, there is no space for love.
Mm-hmm. We often use the Ho'oponopono prayer, and it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And on many of our journeys, I think sometimes we are prone to forgive other people before we forgive ourselves. And so I encourage you just to go deep within in your quiet time and find those places within your own being that you feel like you need to have your own forgiveness and release.
And the third point we want to make in this is just to open your heart to divine love. Open your heart. There is a place within, I know my own journey, because of being hurt or feeling like a failure in love. In my first marriage, I didn't want to get divorced, but it wasn't working. And so there was a fear of failure. And so maybe the heart's not so open. But I remember a message from a little baby named Aqualine Love that was sitting in the belly of a dear sister of mine. She wasn't even born yet. And she goes, oh, Aqualine's got a message for you. Open your heart. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how closed my heart was. Mm-hmm. But that place, like I talk about sometimes, when you go to the sea of receptivity, right? And if you just take a thimble and take out, that's all you're going to get in your life. But if you open your heart to greater expression, like a funnel at the top of your head, allow it at the top of the chalice of your heart, open your heart wider and wider, so that you can allow love. It's all about your allowance. Love can't come to you until you open it, and open those doors, open the windows, and allow love light to come in.
It's so true. And relationships can be the biggest catalyst. They are the biggest catalyst to us opening our hearts. And a lot of times we have to move through those places where you were talking about, babe, the guardedness of our heart. We have often so many layers. I feel like just as I release, sometimes there's another layer that I wasn't even aware of. And so to be able to have relationships, sometimes this close mirror that we have for each other, really reveals the places where we have not allowed love to come in yet.
The second secret that's blocking you from true love is distrust. And this is a big one, I think, from my own personal journey, that we really can't access true love. We can't open up to true love if we're in distrust. And the truth is, you cannot trust another being until you truly trust yourself. Mm-hmm. Who are you? What are you doing in your private moments? Do you trust yourself? Are your yeses your yes to yourself? Are you honorable with your word to you? If you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to show up, are you doing that? Are you following through? And if not, over time, there is distrust in your own self. And so we will live in a world of projection. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I'll just say this. It has nothing ever to do with another person. Ever. This is about you trusting yourself.
Mm-hmm. If we're entertaining our own shadows, it's going to keep us in a field of distrust constantly. And I can say from my own journey, there was many years of my life where I was living a duplicitous kind of a life, where I was on the outside conveying the bright part of my being, where in the quiet, when no physical beings were around, was living something else and acting out my own pain and shadow. And the truth is, there aren't any private thoughts or actions. When you can begin to take full responsibility for all of your thoughts, all of your actions, you will begin to create a field of trust for yourself. So where are you not in congruity with yourself?
Mm-hmm. And the third point is holding on to past mistakes of your own or your partner's will keep you in the maze of distrust. If you're holding on to these grudges and these things, we talked about forgiveness before. But if you're holding them to the fire consistently, you're never going to access trust. You're going to continue to stay in a field of distrust because you're going to project into your world, into your relationship. You're going to do this again.
I'm hearing the verse that says, love keeps no records of wrongs. And so if we're hanging on to those things, both for ourselves and each other, we can never move into a place where we can establish trust.
That's well said. You couldn't say it anymore. This is what would hold on to a record of wrongs. Why would any one of us hold on to a record of wrongs? Because we fear them doing it again. Now we're in a vibration of fear, and we can't access true love. Now you are blocked from true love because you have a sphere of fear. And so let go of that record. Let go of that list. Burn it to the ground. And the solution to distrust is to just trust yourself. As we've been saying, you can't trust another being until you trust yourself. And so the first thing is the path to trusting relationships is truly to trust yourself. And we've talked about this. What do you need to do? Look at your own integrity. Integrity is such a crucial path for each of us. If we're living in integrity, we both emerged from the Christian pathway. And this term righteousness has been a big part of my journey, that I've looked in deep and contemplated what is righteousness. And it just means to be in right relationship with the God of your understanding, with yourself, the God self that you are, your own presence. And if you are in right relationship, your yeses are your yeses, you're living in integrity, when no one's watching, you're proud of who you are, you're going to trust yourself.
Make choices you feel proud of. This is just what Jason was talking about. When no one is watching, and this is where I think many of us have an aversion to the word discipline. We like to call it blisscipline. But when we begin to really take responsibility for every thought, every action, we begin to write a new story. Because when we can tune into the truth of who we are, which in reality is nothing but love, and we allow that to begin to make our choices, we establish a field of our own trust. We can trust ourselves, and so that becomes what we project upon other people. We're not always looking for something to be wrong or them to wrong us.
And third is remember who you are. You are nothing but love. You are fully trustworthy. And, the biggest thing I can say, and Heather said it in one of the other points, is that to forgive yourself. Remember, you are not your mistakes. You are not what you've done ever. You are the source of love. And you are worthy of trust. And so, going back to the Course in Miracles would always teach me to say, just choose again. If you don't like what you've created, okay, know that right here, what you do today will set tomorrow in motion. And you are released from your sin. I, Father Jason Michael Powers, release you of your sin. I have the power to do that. I do, and it happened just now. You can have that. And if you remember who you are, that you are trustworthy, because you are a fractal of the one, you're going to, that sphere of influence right where you are is going to radiate something beautiful in your life. And if the being that you're with is truly making choices that are not, over time, you're going to know, I get to choose again. And that's not, you can be in right relationship. You don't have to be a doormat to be trustworthy.
I just want to kind of capitalize on remember who you are. We have a dear friend of ours who came up with this mantra essentially, but it's love only, forgive everything, and remember who you are. And when you remember that you are a powerful creator, with every single choice, you are creating the next leg of your experience. And so any moment, you're creating something that will either give you an opportunity to choose again, or you're creating something that's establishing a new life that you are imagining you'd like to live. We are all making that choice. You are love in a body. You are love in form. And so choose from that place. Choose that you know that everything will coalesce around you to support your highest and best life when you remember that you are love. Okay, resistance. This is a biggie for me personally. It probably is for all of us at some level. But we've probably all heard the quote that says, "What you resist persists." So we've added "with force." And it's so crazy how when we, for any reason, it doesn't matter what's showing up on the outside that might trigger that sense of resistance within us, the moment we choose to feed that resistance and not just fully surrender to it, it comes back with a vengeance. And life is so masterful at how it will always give us another chance to do it over until we've learned that lesson. So when you resist, you are essentially creating another opportunity for yourself to get it right.
Mm-hmm. And generally, what are you resisting?
Yes.
You know, when you look at your relationship or even within yourself, once again, this is not just about partnership. This is about your own. What are you resisting? What are you not acknowledging? What are you, and if you're resisting something in the other, here's the deal. If you spot it, you got it. In our journey, we talk about duplicity. My beloved will get so upset at my duplicity. And she's self-proclaimed going, because it's in me and I don't like it in me. And so I'm resisting it in me, so I'm going to resist it in you.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. But if I'm spotting it, if you're spotting it in the other, it's because you got it. You can't see it if you don't have it.
Mm-hmm. I would just want to add to that, the quickest way to diffuse the resistance within yourself is just to ask, what am I doing? Where am I contributing to this disharmony or this, feeling that's coming up that I'm not wanting to experience? Turn it back on yourself, because that's where the alchemy can happen.
Mm-hmm. And here's I'm imagining there's a flow. There is an eternal, abundant, infinite flow of love wanting to pour into you. Mm-hmm. And if you're pushing away, if you're in resistance to love, and sometimes love comes in many different ways. Sometimes it comes as fire, and if you're resistant to, or better yet, a scalpel, right? The doctor's scalpel is love, and it needs to cut in, and sometimes in our relationships with each other, they can be sharpening us and calling us out. You get into true love and you're going to see what's not working. Mm-hmm. And if you're resisting that, and it goes to our third point, you only resist what you're afraid to take responsibility of. Mm-hmm. If you're truly ready to take responsibility, the resistance will lower.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And each time that you choose to, rather than respond and deflect and project, the grip of that resistance, the internal resistance, begins to lessen itself. There's so many times when we're in this dance with each other where the initial knee-jerk reaction will cause a much bigger problem between the two of you, whoever it is, whether it's a beloved partnership or just anyone. But if you can get in the habit of taking a breath, taking a pause, and asking, what is my part here? It will often open something up where spirit can speak to you and give you perspective on it so that you can bring compassion and even view the other with compassion. This isn't about whether the other person is right or wrong in the dance that you're doing with them. It's about you just being able to diffuse within yourself.
So the solution to resistance, is just surrender. And that's not easy to do, because especially in a time, especially I know and Heather can speak to this, but the rise of the feminine and the oppression and the conquering of the feminine throughout our time, this idea of surrender is really challenging. But I spent a couple years in recovery. And one of my favorite things from the rooms of recovery was that acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Whenever I'm upset, it's because some person place, or situation is not matching my expectation. And unless I can truly accept it, life on God's terms, life on life's terms, I will never be happy. I'll be in resistance to life, right? So acceptance, radical acceptance and forgiveness will set you and your partner free.
And it really is an extension of just taking responsibility. When we take that personal responsibility, there is no other outside of us. We often say this. You say this to me a lot. There's only one of us here. And when we can see it that way, we can release our expectation of having to hold the other accountable for their actions. And that's really what leads us into the second point, is let go of all judgment towards yourself and anyone else. I am always surprised at how many places I can uncover judgment within myself, and how quickly and subtly and cunning my judgment arises. For many years, I grew up in a pastor's home where we as a family had this air about us. It was multi-generational ministry family. And so there was this subtle air of judgment that I always sensed, that we were more right, that something, that our viewpoint was the correct one. And so it's taken a lot of very conscious action, as I know it does for all of us, to really spot where we are likely to come into judgment of other people. And if you're judging someone outside of you, all that means is there's something inside of you that you're holding yourself in judgment for. And as soon as you release that, all of a sudden compassion wells up, and you can offer that instead of your judgment to everyone else.
And what we're looking at, it's just we're claiming we live in a world of duality, of polarity, and we call it bad or we call that good. And it's all relative to who you are, your moral upbringing, your moral code, whether something's good or bad. And war, as a dear friend of ours would always say, Jim Jensen, he would say, war is an acronym for we are right. And if you're looking at your life and judging that you're right and the other's wrong, how you've been grown up, how you learned how to cook a turkey for Thanksgiving is right, it might be based on tradition, and tradition isn't always right. But Shakespeare said, there is neither good or bad. Thinking makes it so, And so the third step is tap into the flow of your ever-evolving nature.
And I feel like this really kind of brings us back to the first and most bottom line solution to absolutely everything. And that is when you are really truly cutting out the time in your daily life to connect to the source of love that is within you, you tap into the creative nature, the forward motion of the entire universe, and you begin to become in a state of acceptance of not only yourself, but everything that comes up, and you can begin to see it as it's just wanting to tell you something about yourself. So now when you have things that arise that aren't so favorable, or a conversation with your beloved that makes you feel frustrated or triggered, you're able to see it that there's a bigger message wanting to convey itself for your freedom.
And this goes back, these all tie into each other really well. If you're trusting love, if you're trusting this flow of love, love is wanting to heal you. Love is wanting to purify you. Love is wanting to transform you. Like the caterpillar that goes into the chrysalis. If the little caterpillar is not surrendering to its evolving nature, is like, get me out of this encapsulating, restrictive thing. I want to fly. You're binding me, but there's a process that's happening, an evolution, a transformation, and in love, in divine union, in true love, you're both being transformed into beautiful butterflies, dragonflies, whatever you want to call it, but do trust, surrender to the easy flow. That's a song you wrote one time.
It is. It's coming out soon. So the last, and we'll say it's a bonus, because it's really the fourth distinction that we're going to share. But so often in relationship, when we're doing the work to clear ourselves and to clear the relationship challenges that we have, we forget to play with each other. We forget that at the bottom of it, when we tap into that natural flow, what we find is our divine innocence. And we came here to experience life and all that it has to offer. We were watching a Matt Kahn video the other day, and he was talking about, aren't you tired of constantly being in a place where you have to heal and clear and heal and clear? Rather, look at life and say, everything is perfect the way it is. What is the gift in this moment? And look into the eyes of whoever is standing in front of you, whether it's your beloved or your child. What is the gift here that we can celebrate right now? Because when we can tap into that, again, we're creating from that space, which is a higher frequency, which draws in more experiences that are light and playful.
Michael Jackson would sing, "Have you seen my childhood? Where's your child?" You know, this is the Garden of Eden, restoring the garden we talk about. We're coming back to the garden to play. You know, the attributes of love, of God, is joy, is bliss, is ecstasy. This is the nature of true love. It is not to be a workshop where you're chiseling each other to be these dynamic gods and goddesses that look like they're stiff on a statue. We are meant to play. We are meant to create. We are meant to co-create, you know? And so we really want to stress to you, be playful. You know, the definition of playfulness is the quality of being light-hearted or full of fun. You know, the never-ending story, if you haven't seen it, go see it. But the great nothing comes when we as children, we grow up and we start being serious. And I'm not saying don't be irresponsible, but fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart, Frank Sinatra would sing. Stay young at heart. Stay playful. Don't be so serious.
This is truly balancing of powers, right? Learning how to just really be in that childlike innocence and allowing the flow, the natural flow of life to inform what it is that you are here to do. Because the structures that we create, the containers to, you know, for business and whatever, they can become draining. And when we play, we begin to build things that are really co-creating a new earth together.
And we look forward to playing with you soon. If you've enjoyed this time and you want to dig deeper, definitely message us. This is our love offering to you, because we believe that when you awaken the most powerful force in the universe, which is love, our world is going to change.
Thanks for joining us.
If you would like to go deeper and really access this true love, Heather and I invite you to take a 7-week journey with us on a course we call Awakening Love. 7 weeks that will transform your life. Or you can work with us one-on-one. Just email us at thepowersoflove1111@gmail.com. Once again, that's thepowersoflove1111@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you soon.